Good to see all of you. What an honor. Thank you, Michael, for being here. All the beloved rabbis over here. Shkoyach.
Okay, great. So Rabbi Goldstein's going to say a few brief words, then Rabbi Shaw, then I'll introduce Michael, but we'll all be very brief, and then Rabbi Gilbert will say the thank yous at the end. So Rabbi Goldstein, take us away.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Sackstein. Wonderful to be here with everyone once again, and wonderful to have Michael Rothschild from the Chofetz Chaim Heritage Foundation with us. We've got such a beautiful program called Torah Tuesdays, which has joined a whole lot of kahillas together, and this is definitely something that I don't want to lose. Please God, even when things return to semi-normal, because it's just been such a beautiful, beautiful program that we've all been part of, listening to such amazing, amazing guest speakers. And as Rabbi Sackstein says, you know, your voice is well known throughout South Africa. I'm sure everyone that's on this Zoom may not know your face, but they certainly know your voice, and it strikes deep chords of inspiration and of growth. And I think that that's just such a perfect chord to be striking for Elul. So I just want to say to everyone, welcome. Beautiful to have our first Elul Torah Tuesdays this week. And Emet Hashem, as we work towards Rosh Hashanah, just want to take the opportunity to wish everyone, to my dear colleagues, Rabbi Sackstein, Rabbi Shaw, Rabbi Gilbert, and of course you, Michael, and to all our participants tonight. So wonderful to have you all with us, and looking so forward to hearing your words of inspiration.
Thank you.
Michael, certainly lovely to see you. I've heard your voice, and as Rabbi Goldstein said, we're very familiar with the voice. It's so nice to see your face and to know, to put a face to the voice. I have to say, one of the lessons my father taught me when I was a little boy, and something that was like a family credo, was Daracheha Darchei Noam, the ways of Torah, ways of pleasantness. And you have the most remarkable way of being able to put some of the most Mussadic concepts over to people that everyone can be makabel, that everybody loves the style. When my wife heard that you were going to be speaking, her and her friends were very, very excited to be able to be exposed to you tonight. And I have to say that of all of the speakers that we've had on these Tuesday programs, you have the finest tie of anyone that we've had so far in here. So it's a very big schus to have you. I'm looking so forward. And just everybody, welcome. Lovely to have you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbi Shaw.
Oh, okay, who's next? I'm sorry.
Let me just pop in a quick introduction, Michael, and then you're on. So we won't be too much longer over here with introductions, but thank you so much to Rabbi Goldstein and Rabbi Shaw. Always wonderful to be with you on our Torah Tuesdays programs. And please God, we should continue to bring outstanding world-class speakers via Zoom to our South African Jewish community. And a very big thank you to Rabbi Gilbert and his wife Elisheva for hosting the webinar. We're always so grateful to them for so graciously hosting this Torah that we share on Tuesday nights together. It's a first here in South Africa to hear Michael Rothschild, which is a great honor for all of us and a very important moment, and please God, the first of many. As we've been saying, that the Chofetz Chaim Heritage Foundation, which Michael is the founder and the director, it's familiar to us through the Tisha B'Av videos, but that's just a small part of what the Chofetz Chaim Heritage Foundation does. They're involved in many incredible educational programs within Klal Yisrael and have touched thousands and thousands of Jews the world over. And we thank Michael for the tremendous work that he does for Klal Yisrael. And we're very fortunate in South Africa. A very big thank you also to Evron Urison and to Yaron and Shili Tobias, who represent the Chofetz Chaim Heritage Foundation in South Africa. And they put in a lot of work and many hours to try and bring the wonderful programs of the Chofetz Chaim Heritage Foundation to our community here in South Africa. And they arranged the talk this evening. So we thank them very much. And we thank Michael very much. He'll be speaking tonight on the magic formula of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
Okay, wow, wow.
You're on.
So I will tell you, I am so honored to be here. That's number one. And it's just amazing to be here. But before anything, I want to thank Rabbi Sackstein and Rabbi Shaw and Rabbi Gilbert for putting this together. it's a very special thing for me to be able to do this. And, you know, South Africa is a very blessed country because you have 3 couples in South Africa who have taken upon themselves to bring Shmiras Haloshen into South Africa. And they've been crazily successful. And that's Shelley and Yaron Tobias, Mr. and Mrs. Avram Urison, and David and Fiona Aronowitz. All of them have done an incredible job. And so I think I know that all of South Africa has a tremendous debt of gratitude to them. Yaron and Avron are actually on the board of directors of Chofetz Chaim Heritage Nation International. And we met them because they came on a trip. And they said, and on the trip, they asked me, we did a trip to Eastern Europe, and they came with us to Lithuania, to the cave of the Chofetz Chaim, and they said, like, how come this isn't, you know, more in South Africa? And I said, you know, it's not, because it's not. And they said, okay, we're going to do it. And, you know, it's just amazing what they've done over the course of, I don't know how many years it is, but they've literally transcended everything to be able to bring South Africa into Shmiras Haloshen. That happens to be that the world knows that South Africans have good midos. Everybody knows that. They're nice, they're gentle, they speak carefully. So we all know that, but Afal Pikein, certainly to be connected to Shmiras Haloshen is a very important thing, and we have these people to thank for it, and we have tremendous Hakaras HaTov, and I think all of South Africa should have a tremendous Hakaras HaTov, and they never stop. They always ask me for more. What else can we do? They're hoping in Mirz Hashem to do something in Elul. It's a tremendous, I have tremendous Hakaras HaTov to them for everything they've done for us. Okay. So let me start by telling you that on December 3rd, 1967 was a great day for the country of South Africa. December 3rd, 1967. But December 3rd, 1967 was a great day for the entire world because on December 3rd, 1967, Dr. Christian Barnard held the first heart transplant operation in the history of the world. Actually, all of heart transplants and probably anything that was transplanted from the human body all started with a South African doctor who exploded into the world and did his first operation on December 3rd, 1967. Now, I want to tell you a very interesting story about that time. When that happened, the whole world was going crazy about such an incredible advance. And obviously, as frum Jews, we always look at it as what's the halachic, you know, parameters, how does this play out in halacha? And so in 1967, as you can imagine, if there was one person who would be asked about how this plays out in halacha, would be none other than the Gadol Ador, who was Reb Moshe Feinstein. He was the highest halachic authority in the world at the time. And so people came to Reb Moshe and they asked him, they wanted to figure out what to do. And so they found a frum doctor who was on the heart transplant team at, I don't know, NYU or something like that. He knew the most about it. And they made up a meeting that he would come and visit Reb Moshe in Reb Moshe's yeshiva, which is MTJ. He would come on the Lower East Side. And Reb Moshe would sit with him for 2 hours. He would explain to Reb Moshe all the details about how a heart transplant is done. And then Reb Moshe would give a psak. All of Klal Yisrael was waiting for the psak of Reb Moshe on heart transplants. And so the day came, and this doctor came down to the yeshiva. And when he came into Reb Moshe said, you know what, it's so noisy here, and there's so many people interrupting me. Why don't we go to my apartment where it's private and quiet, and we'll sit at my apartment, and I'll give you the time, and then I'll give you a psak. So the doctor said, fine. And the two of them walked, his apartment was nearby. They walked to Rav Moshe's apartment. Rav Moshe and the doctor walk into the lobby, and the doctor presses the elevator button. The elevator comes down, and Rav Moshe doesn't go into the elevator. And he's waiting, and he's waiting. Rav Moshe doesn't go into the elevator. So he says, Rosh Hashiva, the elevator's here, let's go. Rav Moshe says, I can't go. So he says, why can't you go? Rav Moshe says, you see there's like an 8-year-old girl in the lobby. So you can't leave a frum 8-year-old girl in a lobby in the Lower East Side unattended. I have to wait till somebody comes and picks her up. So the doctor said, Rosh Hashiva, why don't you just go tell their parents that she's in the lobby and then they'll come and take her. He says, no, she doesn't have parents. She only has a mother. So he says, Rashida, so tell the mother that her daughter is in the thing. He says, no, I can't do that. I can't do that because if I tell the mother that her daughter is like roaming around, the mother's going to feel bad. And I can't make this mother feel bad. So I can't tell her. I'm going to wait till somebody comes to pick her up. And Rav Moshe Feinstein, the Gadol Ador, the whole world was waiting on a shaila that he had of life and death importance, did not do anything but waited and babysat an 8-year-old girl so that he wouldn't embarrass anybody. That's, if you want to have an idea of how careful our rabbis and we have to be on the honor and the dignity of a person, that story blows it away. That Rav Moshe first realized that he was going to hurt this woman, and when he realized that he was going to hurt this woman, he said, I'm not willing to hurt the woman. So that's the greatness of the story. Now, if you think about it, we're now about to go into Rosh Hashanah. And Rosh Hashanah is like, it's the time when we have to think about why we came down to this world, and Hashem thinks about the resources he invested in us and how we did. And there's basically two things that when you talk about what is the goal, what was our goal in the last year? So the first goal obviously is to bring Hashem's presence into the world. That's the first goal. But I want to share with you a second goal, and that's what I want to talk about today. The Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon, there's a sefer called Even Shlema, and the Vilna Gaon, in the very first words of his sefer, he writes like this. I'm going to translate. Kol avodas Hashem toli b'tikkun hamidus. All of avodas, all of serving Hashem has to do with fixing your midos. In other words, fixing your character traits and making you into a better person. And so one of the things that when you think about it, when we think about, okay, like we just lived for a year, God invested in us for a year, what did he want from us? So the Vilna Gaon is telling you that a huge piece of what he wanted is that our midos, we should fix our midos and we should become dignified and elegant people. And so if you think about it, let me tell you some statistics. The average person speaks 40,000 words a day. 40,000 words a day. If you multiply that by 354, which is the number of in the Jewish year, it comes out that each of us have spoken 14 million words in the last year. So think about it this way. The master of the universe gave us a reservoir, an inventory of 14 million words. And with these 14 million words, we're almost at Rosh Hashanah. And the master of the universe is going to be coming and looking, and he's saying, okay, what did you do with these 14 million words? And so what we need to think about and what we're going to try to do today is say, wait 1 second, you know what? If the Vilna Gaon said that midos is the primary, kol avodas Hashem toli b'tikkun hamidus, that all of avodas Hashem, of serving Hashem, the foundation is to fix yourself. And we know that midos live and die in a person's mouth. In other words, if you think about midos, you think about, let's say, negative attributes. There's anger, there's arrogance, there's jealousy, right? Let's just take those three. Where does that show up in a person? You know where it shows up? It shows up in their mouth. You end up speaking arrogantly, or if you're jealous, if you're angry, you end up speaking angrily, or if you're jealous, you end up speaking lashon hara about somebody. And what happens when somebody is compassionate and loving? Then it also shows up in their mouth, because then they live in the world of shmiras halosha, of looking for the good, of not speaking the bad, of speaking gently to somebody, of building somebody up. And so if you think about it, in the end, our goal is to fix our midos, and where it shows up is it shows up in our words. And so what we want to talk about, what I want to give you today, what I want you to walk out of this time together today is a foolproof strategy on how you could take one sentence, insert it in your mind, And those 14 million words next year are going to come out, and they're going to be like mamish beautiful. And with that, you're going to be fixing your midos, because every time you make a choice to do the right thing, it strengthens that part of you. So it's going to strengthen your humility, and it's going to strengthen your compassion. It's going to strengthen your love of your fellow man. This is what speech does. It's a magical thing. We do it all day, and if we do it right, the Chavetz Chaim says it has vast impact on making us into the person we want to be. But before we're going to get to what is my one sentence strategy that is going to allow you to use 14 million words in the next 12 months, the way Hashem wants you to use it, I want to just first analyze what are words. First, what are words? So we know that Hashem created the whole world with words, right? We know that Hashem created, it says, Basar Mamars Nivra Olam, that with 10 utterances, let there be light, let there be fish, let there be man. There was 10 utterances, and Hashem could have created his world any way he wanted, but he created this world, with words. And therefore, Hashem said, I'm giving each of you, each human being, the power of speech also, so that you could create your world with words. And if you think about it deeply, and we're going to talk about it, you're going to see that actually we do create, all of our relationships are built on words. So now, Emir Hashem, in a couple of weeks from now, it's going to be Rosh Hashanah, and we're going to be brought into court, and Hashem is going to look at a giant transcript of 14 million words, and he's going to decide if he invested wisely in each of us. I benched all of you, everybody, including myself, that the answer should be Hashem's going to say, I taka invested wisely, and let me invest for another year. Emir Hashem. But if we were to take one of those 14 million words, and we were to take one of these high-powered microscopes, the kind that like, you know, could find the corona virus, because corona is very, very small, and we were to put a word in this microscope and study it, what do you think we would see? So I want to tell you something shocking. You know what you would see? You would see your soul, your neshama. How does that work? What do you mean you would see your neshama? So I want to explain to you the depth of what a word is. We know that Adam Harishon, was created. We have this picture maybe that God just poof, you know, sent something into Adam, and then he just popped down and he started singing Hashem's praises. That's not what happened. Chazal tell us that what happened is Hashem created Adam. He created him as a sack of bones and blood and flesh. That's it. And it was just, he was lying on the ground. And then it says, Vayipa ba'apav nishmas chayim, and Hashem blew the breath of life in him. And with that, Adam stood up. What's the breath of life? So Onkelos, one of the commentators on the Torah, says that the breath of life that Hashem blew into Adam was a ruach mamala, a speaking spirit. What the Onkelos is teaching us is an amazing thing. Our neshama, the thing that's inside of us, the chelik elakam imal, the piece of us that's Hashem, is our speaking spirit. That means that our neshama is our actually koyach hadibur. That's how powerful our speaking is. It's actually our neshama. If our neshama is our power of speech, what are words? So Rav Avram Azulai said that, you know what words are? Words are when we release little pieces of our neshama into the world. Can you imagine when you look at a word under a microscope, a spiritual microscope, you'd actually be seeing a tiny piece of a soul. Well, that's pretty wild, but you know what? That explains something amazing. I'm sitting here in my office right now, and if I wanted to speak to somebody who's outside, and I would scream at the top of my lungs, what are the chances that they would hear me? Pretty much zero. My voice wouldn't carry. Well, if my voice wouldn't carry here, what makes us think that when we go into shul and we daven, our voice carries through the seven heavens all the way to the heavenly throne? Like, how does that work? And so the answer is the reason it works is because the words are not sound bites. They're pieces of divine energy. Divine energy is endless. And so the words that we speak are endless, and therefore they could go all the way to the Kisei HaKavod. But just to tell you, there's a downside to that. Do you ever wonder, you hear sometimes that somebody said like one sentence and they destroyed a relationship for life? I'm sure you've heard of that before. Or with one sentence, a few words of Lashon Hara, they destroyed a person's reputation or their marriage. How did that happen? It's just a couple of words. It's not a couple of words. It's divine. It's the divine used to the bad. When you take something like Lashon Hara, what you're doing is you're taking the power of Hashem and you're using it in the most negative way possible. And that's why it can create such incredible damage. And so let's just go over what we said till now. We learned three things so far. We learned that Hashem has given each of us 14 million words. He has an inventory for us to use, for us to have used in the last year. He gave us 14 million words to use. That's number one. The second thing we learned is that those are not stum words, not just little pieces of sound. They actually have a divine power to them. And the third thing we learned is that the Vilna Gaon says that our job in this world is to fix our midas, which means our job in this world is to go through this world and every morning to say, Hashem, please help me that I shouldn't hurt somebody today. Hashem, please help me that I should be able to help people and build people and use my power of speech to build and to make people feel good and to make people smile. That's what my job is. And so now, but in the end, 14 million words is a lot of words. And so what did Hashem in his infinite wisdom do? He brought us a Chafetz Chaim, the famous rabbi that lived who died in 1933. And he wrote a manual that's about this thick of how to use your mouth. And if you use it correctly, you are going to bring so much blessing to yourself and to everybody in your life. And if, God forbid, you use it incorrectly, then you're going to bring a lot of unhappiness to you and to everybody else. The power of your speech literally defines your quality of life in this world and in the next. And so therefore Hashem said, you know what? I'm not going to give you this without giving you very detailed instructions. I'm giving you this book, and if you study this book, you'll be able to understand what you should do. Okay. So now you understand that how you speak is going to determine tremendously the quality of your life. But you know what? Probably most people here are, let's say, over 20. And if you haven't been thinking about, if you haven't installed software into your brain that gets you to think before you speak, by the time you're 20 years old, you're so used to thinking without speaking that unfortunately it's easy to speak Lashon Hara. So the question is there some kind of magical something that I could give you that you could install in your mind that's actually going to get you to be able to be careful with Shmiras HaLashon? The answer is yes. So let me tell you how it works. What is the greatest event in human history? The greatest event in human history was Kabbalah Torah. Hashem gave the Torah. Hashem, the master of the universe, stopped the whole world and he said, here's my precious Jewish people, and I'm giving you the Torah. And what do we know from the giving of the Torah? We know the famous pasuk in Chumash that it says that the whole Matan Torah, the whole idea of getting the Torah was predicated on Vayichan Shem Neged Ahor, that Klal Yisrael, that the Jewish people were united. So unity is something that is absolutely an integral thing to be able to acquire Torah. And I'll tell you something, the Sfas Emes, who's a commentator, said, he said this in his lectures on Shavuos, that actually Torah downloads into a person's neshama. It actually impacts on a person to the extent that they have Avos Yisrael. So if you have somebody who, let's say, hates Jews, and he's the biggest Talmid Chacham in the world, the Sfas Emes says, it's ridiculous. It's like it's not going to work. Then you could have somebody who isn't the biggest Talmid Chacham in the world, but he loves people. That is very prized by Hashem. And so if we think about Torah, which is so important, that all of us are so involved in learning Torah, right? If we think about it, we got to know that the paradigm for acquiring Torah is achdus, is getting along, is speaking nicely to people, etc. That's what it is. So now the question is there, like, when you think about unity, what is the Torah's, like, the banner for unity? And so the answer is, the banner for unity is v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha. You should love your fellow like yourself. That's the banner, right? That is what it says. That's what it says in the Torah. You should love your fellow like yourself. Everybody knows about it. But I want to ask you a question, and that is like this. We know as Jews that we've been taught since we're little kids that it's all about what you do for the other person. It's never about yourself. It's always, you're supposed to be nice to people, and you're supposed to think about them, and you're supposed to care about them. It's always about that. And then suddenly, when the Torah is giving you, like, the one sentence that's going to teach you, like, the one sentence that's going to teach you to love your fellow Jew, suddenly it turns and it says it's about you. You should love your fellow like yourself. Like, it doesn't make sense. What do you mean like yourself? Here's some of the reasons I should love my fellow Jew. I should love them because Hashem told me to love them. It could have just said v'ahavta l'reacha because Hashem told you. It actually does say in the pasuk ani Hashem, but because of that, not l'reacha. We could love Hashem. We could love our fellow Jew because they're Hashem's children. So that's why we should love our fellow Jew. We could love our fellow Jew because being united clearly is a better way to go. What does it mean that you should love your fellow like yourself? And if the flip side of that is an amazing Gemara that says that a ger, a non-Jew, came to Hillel and he said, teach me the whole Torah on one. He came to Shammai, he said, teach me the whole Torah on 1 foot. Shammai said, I can't do it. He came to Hillel. And what did Hillel say? Now, just think about it. We're talking about the entire Torah. That's a pretty big body of knowledge. And Hillel said, the inverse of the V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, the aloch lo yitzani l'chavercha al saved. If it's hated to you, don't do it to somebody else. Zum kol haTorah. This is the entire Torah. This is the entire Torah. It's wild. What do you mean? This is how could this be the entire Torah that I should love somebody? So I want to tell you an idea, and this is the idea that you could use to ace. You'll start it now. By the time Rosh Hashanah comes along, Hashem's going to say, oh my gosh, you really got this Shemiras Halosha thing down. And next year, you're going to be like a superstar, and they're going to be offering you like multi-million-dollar contracts. But here's the idea. We deal with a lot of different people. We deal with people in our families. We deal with people in our offices. We deal with people in schools. And you know, there's one thing is for sure, you never know what's going on inside of a person. You don't know their history. You don't know their sensitivities. You don't know what happened to them just 5 minutes ago if somebody yelled at them 5 minutes ago. So we don't really know what's going on by people. If we don't know what's going on by people, but Hashem wants us to treat everybody on the highest level, and we don't know what that is, so then how can we do that? And so the Torah came up with the most magical thing. The Torah said, you know what? You taka don't know how other people are. But there's one thing that you'll always know, no matter what in your entire life, you'll know how you feel. You'll know how you feel. So let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, right? I'm not going to tell you a piece of Lashon Hara. I'm going to tell you just a random piece. Imagine you're deciding where you're going to go for Sukkot. Now, a lot of people are deciding where they're going for Sukkot because of Corona, and a lot of people are going to end up in different places. So imagine you're thinking, should I go there? Should I go there? And you tell somebody, oh yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to go to place X. And you're a fly on the wall, and in this coming Shabbos at somebody else's Shabbos table, there's going to be a long discussion with many sides back and forth why you are deciding where you're going to go. And they're not going to say Lashon Hara. They're just going to discuss you in great microscopic detail. How would you feel about that? I can tell you for myself, I would be squirming. I'm not talking about that anybody said Lashon Hara. Just the fact that I would be the conversation piece at a Shabbos table. For sure, if Chas V'Shalom they would say, oh, it's a cheshbon, I know the cheshbon, that would be terrible. But even if it wouldn't be, What I want to tell you is that we each have an intrinsic knowledge in our depth of being of what we like and what we don't like. The Torah is giving us an absolutely mind-blowing idea. You want to turn your mouth on and start using those 14 million words? There's one idea that you have to have in your brain. How would I feel if somebody said this about me? And if you wouldn't feel good, then don't say it. Can you imagine? It's such a simple little thing, right? It's a simple little thing. I mean, obviously you have to get into the habit of doing it. But this, I believe, is the essence of what the Torah is teaching us. The Torah is in V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha. Why does it say to you, right? It's saying to you because that's the one piece of information you know in any relationship you have. How would you feel? And I'm telling you that if you start getting into the habit of activating your mind, that before you start speaking, when you're sitting at the table or you're in the office or you're speaking to a person, right? Would I like somebody to say that to me? Because let's say I made a mistake and now somebody's going to come down on me harshly. And I think to myself, and you think to yourself, how would I feel? And then you'd say, you know what, if I wouldn't feel good, I'm not going to do it. You are going to be able to ace your exam. So when you think about creating negativity and that right now is the end of that piece. The secret that I'm giving you is that if you think about how would I feel before you speak, if you get into that habit, you are going to ace your Rosh Hashanah, and it's gonna transform the way you speak. It's gonna transform your Shalom Bayis because you're always thinking, how would I feel if somebody did this or said this to me? It's going to transform the way you give tzedakah because somebody comes to the door, they ask for tzedakah. How would I feel? I know I wouldn't want somebody to have a sour face or slam the door quickly on my face. It's gonna impact on everything in one sentence. It's gonna upgrade your avodas Hashem, at least your avodas Hashem as it relates to people in the most amazing way possible. So that is what I want to tell you. And if you could just take that and go with it, that would be amazing. But I want to tell you one more thing, and that is like this. Baruch Hashem, over the last number of years, you know, the Chavetz Chaim Heritage Nation has been around for 30 years. And 30 years ago, Lashon Hara was not so, the idea that Lashon Hara is something that you should stay away from was not so prevalent. Klal Yisrael was dealing with much bigger issues post-war. And then 30 years ago, Baruch Hashem, a number of very holy people, the Manchester Rosh Hashiva, Zatzal, and Rabbi Zelig Pliskin wrote his Guard Your Tongue, and other people got on board, and then Chavetz Chaim Heritage Foundation started, and we were really moving in an upward scale, and South Africa came on board, like we were going well until the plague of social media hit. Social media is like a nuclear bomb to Lashon Hara. And the crazy thing is that many people use social media and they don't even realize what they're doing. So I want to tell you just two true stories that maybe you saw before because they had been on the Tisha B'Av event, but I'll tell you one. A fellow who I ended up meeting, he called up our office and he said the following story. He was a law student and he had written a paper, and he quoted, in other words, the paper takes like 6 months to write. So at the beginning of writing the paper, he works with a professor. He sent it to the professor, the paper, very preliminary, and in it he had not bracketed a quote that actually came from a book. Now, that's a mistake that could happen, but he didn't submit it. It was still along the way. The principal went crazy, the professor went crazy, and he made an entire campaign to get this person thrown out of school. And if he would have gone thrown out of school, his law career would have been over. And this fellow, he took his paper and the story to numerous professors and legal advisors, and he asked them, like, what's the story? And they said, it's crazy. You didn't submit the paper. It was just a draft at the very beginning. So he was stuck. His whole career was on the line. And he started thinking to himself, if this is happening to me, there must be a reason why this is happening. I must have done something similar to somebody else, and I got to fix it. And he was thinking about it, and he came up with the following thing. A number of years ago, there was a frum man who was going through an airport, and he went. What's wrong with getting? There's nothing wrong with getting a pedicure, but he was learning Gemara at the time. So while he was getting the pedicure, he was learning the Gemara. Somebody walked down the corridor of the airport and saw this scene and thought it was very cute, and they took a picture of it and they put it out on WhatsApp or something. The picture went viral. It's unfortunate, like it's very, very unfortunate, because here's this innocent guy. What is he doing? He's not doing anything wrong, and suddenly his picture is all over, and probably some people, whatever, it wasn't a good situation. This guy got the picture, and he forwarded it on also to a bunch of people. He thought it was cute. And as soon as he forwarded it on, he got messages back, laughing and emojis and everything. And that was the end of the story. He didn't think about it. But then when this thing happened with the professor, and he realized, I shepherded somebody, I did something to somebody. What did I do? He realized it must be that I'm being punished for the fact that what I did to this guy. So what is he going to do? He has no idea who this guy is. How is he going to find him? So he called the Chofetz Chaim Eretz Nation. He was hoping that the person who was the victim here was so angry that he called to complain, and that we would have their phone number. Lemaisa, the guy never called. And so he said, okay, he hung up. A little while later, we were talking about the Tisha B'Av event. And we wanted to promote this idea that people are putting out ridiculous things on social media and not realizing the terrible damage that it does. And somebody said, hey, this guy called. Why don't we interview him? So one of the employees at the Chofetz Chaim Heritage Nation called this fellow. And they said, would you be interested in being interviewed? We'll black out your face, but you'll tell your story. He said yes. From the time that he said yes, because he wanted to get forgiveness for what he did, for the time that he said yes, to the time that the university called him and said, by the way, we're dropping all charges and it's not even going to be on your record, I believe was less than a week. He took that as a divine message that he was in an impossible situation, and suddenly he was like, wow, he was saved. And so he got on the Tisha B'Av video, and he actually was hoping that this guy would see it, and maybe he did see it, and hopefully he just saw it and he forgave everybody who did this. But he did it, and it went out, and from what we understand, there was a lot of people who were very inspired to say, you know what, I can't take pictures of people and blast them out and spread Lashon Hara on social media. So the next thing I want to tell you is, the first thing I want to tell you is the idea of V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. But the second thing I wanted of how would I feel if somebody would do this to me? That's the magic weapon you could use, the magic tool you could use to work on Shmiras Lashon. But the second thing is a tremendous sensitivity when it comes to passing on information or commenting or anything like that, or going to kosher Torah websites where, like news websites where there's comment lines. All of that is something that a person needs to stay away from very, very far. I want to end with one story. My mother, Baruch Hashem, is 99 years old. I just spent 18 days in Israel. First, I was in quarantine, but then afterwards, I spent a lot of time with her. She's an amazing woman. When she was 93, which is 6 years ago, the story that I'm about to tell you happened. Here's the story. I'm sitting on her porch, on my parents' porch in Yerushalayim, Kodesh. It's a beautiful sun-dappled day. And I turned to my mother, she's 93 years old, and I said, Ma, isn't Hashem amazing? The sun is 93 million miles away, but it's caressing our face like mamish perfectly. It wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold. It was just a gorgeous, gorgeous day. And I said, if we were any closer, we would be fried, and any further, we'd turn into ice. But Hashem, mamish, locked it exactly. The rays that are coming from 93 million miles away are perfectly hitting our face. I said, isn't Hashem amazing? She said, of course. I said, Ma, tell me your first childhood memory. So she said, this is what she said. My mother lived in a city called Mannheim in Germany. She was born in 1920. So this story took place in 1927. In 1927 in Mannheim, there was no elementary school like you have from elementary school. So she went to public school, but they had a Talmud Torah. So when she was 7 years old, she went to Talmud Torah, and her mother would come to pick her up every day. And one day, she remembers, this is the memory, that she's sitting and she's holding her mother's hand, waiting in front of this Talmud Torah. The Talmud Torah is over. She remembers that there was a big German department store across the street. And a friend of my mother-in-law's walks by and sees the two of them together. And she looks at my mother and she turns to my grandmother and she says, what a beautiful child you have. She said, that's my first childhood memory. And I said, wow, that happened 86 years ago. My mother remembered 6 nice words that were spoken to her 86 years ago. Now let's think about what the last 86 years of her life were, so you understand. Because shortly afterwards, Hitler came to power, in other words, in 1933, then she was kicked out of school. They lived across the street from brown shirts. They ran away from Germany. They came to America. They didn't have a penny. They were paupers. A lot of stuff has happened in those 86 years. And out of 86 years, my mother remembered 6 words. You have a beautiful daughter. What a beautiful daughter you have. When she told me that, I said, can you imagine the power that each of us have in our words, that we could say something nice to somebody and they're going to remember it, just like the sun traveled 93 million miles. Those 6 words traveled 86 years from a street in Mannheim, Germany, to land on a porch in Yerushalayim, Yer HaKodesh, and make my mother smile. So here's what I want to leave you with. Each one of you has a power in your mouth that is not only divine, but it's divine to heal and to help and to build and to make people smile. You have no idea how much power you have to do that. You have no idea. You see, from my mother, this is what she remembered. And so I want to bench everybody. I want to bless everybody that you say to yourself, wow, you know what? I really got to get this speech thing done. I gotta figure it out. And the way I'm going to figure it out is I'm going to stay away from the bad by thinking to myself before I speak, how would I feel if somebody said that about me? And if I wouldn't feel good about it, I'm not going to say it. And then I'm going to say to myself, wow, look at this. Just think about Michael Rothschild's mother, Mrs. Edith Rothschild. She should live and be well till 120. And just think that something that happened 86 years ago, she remembered. I can do something today that somebody else, if they have Arichas Yom, is going to remember in 86 years from now. I can do that right this minute. I could go into my house and say something nice to somebody, or go into my office or to my shul or to one of my mispalim, or whatever it is. I could say something nice, and they're going to remember it. And it's going to change their life, and it's going to make them happy. And that is why Hashem gave you this infinite power. I bench all of you that you should use it the right way. And I guarantee you that when you use it the right way, you are going to realize that Shmiras HaLashon is so sweet. Once you get out of the toxins of Lashon Hara, you realize that Shmiras HaLashon, to be careful with your words, is amazing. It makes you feel so good about yourself. It makes you become a person that brings so much good into the world. Think about it, 14 million words a year, multiplied by how many years, Mirz Hashem, you're all going to live. Imagine if you grab those hundreds and hundreds of millions of hours and you said, I'm gonna master this koyach of mine and to bring good into the world. The good you bring into the world is going to be unbelievable, and the olam haba you're going to have is going to be unbelievable. So I bench you a good bench. Hashem should watch you You should have shidduchim and nachas and parnosa and shalom bayis and everything good. And you should walk out of COVID much, much better than you walked in. And Hashem should just send you all a good ksivus simatayv and a good kibench tour. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very, very much for those unbelievably inspiring words. I remember growing up as a young child, and one of the things in nursery school that we were taught was, there was a saying that we all said. We said, "Sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words may never harm me." And only in life did we realize that that was possibly the greatest sheker that exists. That the words that may never harm me are really the greatest harm that comes on. And the children are taught, you know, sticks and stones are really what hurt, but words don't hurt. But words hurt so much deeper. They hurt on a physical level, on an emotional level, on a spiritual level. They destroy, they break down, or if they are used positively, they are bringing about kedusha, they're bringing about connectivity, they're bringing about enhancing relationships. And that's really what the Tachlis Abriya is all about. So I just wanted to thank you very much for bringing about koyach in this world, and that you should continue to share this message to the rest of the world, to Klal Yisrael, and that we should be able to take the message, that we should all be able to take it into our hearts and into our neshamas, and that we should realize the koyach hadibur that we all have. And Hashem should bless us all for a good Gemench Yor. And to all of you and your family, thank you for sharing your words of Torah and inspiration with us. And thank you to the rabbis. And for everyone involved, thank you to Yaron and Sherry Tobias, Rabbi Saxton, Rabbi Shor, Rabbi Goldstein, and everyone who's been involved in this, to Elisheva. Thank you very much. And I hope
Avron, David and Fiona Aronowitz, all of them. They're amazing. You got an amazing country there, Baruch Hashem.
We do. We have some koyach over here, but thank you for inspiring us all the way from your homeland. And Yetz Hashem, we should all be blessed for a good, healthy, happy year.
Thank you. Thank you.